What makes a comedy genius look back on his own work and say, I can't watch that anymore? How does someone who shaped the very definition of satire and absurdity come to feel conflicted about the material that once made the world laugh? And what happens when the man behind the laughter admits that the cost of creating it was heavier than anyone knew? These aren't just interesting questions. They're the foundation of one of the most fascinating chapters in the life of John Cleese, a man who didn't just make people laugh, but made them think while they were doing it. John Cleese, born in 1939 in a quiet English seaside town, may have seemed destined for a traditional path. With a lawyer for a father and an upbringing shaped by middle-class manners and expectations, there wasn't anything especially comedic about his early years, unless you count the tall, lanky boy's awkwardness as its own kind of punchline. But even back then, something was bubbling beneath the surface. At Clifton College and later at Cambridge, Cleese found that wit could be sharper than any lecture on law, and humor, when smartly wielded, could challenge ideas, not just entertain. That realization became a spark. And once he joined the famed footlights at Cambridge, alongside minds like Graham Chapman and Eric Idle, that spark became a flame that would reshape comedy forever. It didn't take long for that flame to catch. In 1969, Monty Python's Flying Circus burst onto British television like nothing anyone had ever seen. It was weird, it was brilliant, and most of all, it was fearless. Whether Cleese was playing the rigid minister of silly walks or the deadpan Mr. Praline with his famously deceased parrot, he brought a level of intelligence to absurdity that made people laugh and think at the same time. Over 4 seasons, Cleese and his fellow Pythons created a brand of comedy that mocked tradition, exposed hypocrisy, and danced on the line between genius and nonsense. And the world loved it. But Cleese wasn't content to just stick with sketches. While his fellow Pythons pressed on, he stepped away before the 4th season to build something of his own. That something became Fawlty Towers, a sitcom so brilliantly uncomfortable, it remains one of the most beloved British shows of all time. With his then-wife Connie Booth as co-writer and co-star, Cleese brought to life Basil Fawlty, a man whose short temper, social awkwardness, and sheer panic turned a seaside hotel into a comedy battlefield. Every episode was a carefully crafted mess, filled with misunderstandings, sarcasm, and moments of pure chaos. It was comedy at its sharpest and its most human. Yet, out of all the laughs and chaos, one episode in particular still haunts Cleese, so much so that he refuses to watch it. The Germans, an episode from the 1st season, was meant to satirize xenophobia and the discomfort of cultural misunderstanding. Basil Fawlty's repeated, frantic insistence that you mustn't mention the war while continuously offending his German guests is an infamous moment in television history. But for Cleese, the episode has taken on a different weight over time. Though he once stood behind its boldness, today he finds it too raw, too uncomfortable. Not because the joke missed, but because the world has changed. Humor that once revealed ignorance now feels dangerously close to reinforcing it. And for Cleese, who has always walked that tightrope between satire and sensitivity, that line has become harder to see with time. But this discomfort isn't just about changing cultural norms. For Cleese, The Germans isn't just an episode, it's a memory. A moment wrapped in personal struggle, artistic pressure, and emotional toll. Producing Fawlty Towers wasn't easy. It was exhausting. Every line, every beat, every moment was agonized over. The show's brilliance came at a price, and for Cleese, revisiting it brings back the intensity of those moments, not just the laughter, but the stress, the conflict, and the complex feelings tied up in working with a spouse, crafting a masterpiece, and carrying the weight of high expectations. It's easy to forget that behind the comedic timing and explosive rants of Basil Fawlty was a man who wasn't just trying to make people laugh, he was trying to say something. Cleese has always believed that comedy is more than entertainment. He's lectured about it, written about it, and lived by it. He sees humor as a tool, a way to question authority, expose hypocrisy, and process pain. And in a strange way, his refusal to watch The Germans is its own form of respect for the art, for the audience, and for the changing world that receives it. That kind of self-awareness didn't come overnight. Cleese has spent decades wrestling with the more private parts of his life, the parts that don't appear on stage or screen. In interviews, he's spoken candidly about the impact of his mother, Muriel, a woman who lived to be 101 and left a deep mark on his emotional world. Describing a life spent walking on eggshells around her, Cleese has said that this early dynamic left him anxious, overly cautious, and emotionally guarded. Traits that followed him into adulthood, into his relationships, and into the very way he navigated the world. That emotional caution, mixed with the pressures of fame and the demands of creative excellence, took its toll. Cleese married 4 times, and 3 of those marriages ended in divorce. With Connie Booth, he shared both a creative partnership and a son, Cameron. With Barbara Trentum, he had a daughter, Camilla. His 3rd marriage to psychotherapist Alice Faye Eichelberger also ended, and only in his 4th marriage to Jennifer Wade did he seem to find something quieter, more settled. But through it all, he's never stopped working on himself. Therapy became a major part of his life, not just to understand his past, but to shape his future. He's been open about battling depression, confronting old habits, and seeking ways to connect more honestly with others. That openness, especially from someone of his generation, stands out. It's not just refreshing, it's brave. In many ways, John Cleese's legacy isn't just in the characters he played or the lines he wrote. It's in the way he's constantly examined his own role as a comedian, a creator, a partner, and a father. His honesty about mental health, relationships, and regret adds depth to the man who once made us laugh until we cried. He reminds us that comedy can come from pain, but it doesn't have to end there. That you can laugh at the absurdity of life while still acknowledging its weight. That being funny and being thoughtful aren't opposites. They're partners in something much deeper. And it's that very duality that makes Cleese's story so compelling. He didn't just ride the wave of comedy, he helped shape it. From the surreal brilliance of Monty Python to the controlled chaos of Fawlty Towers, from the satirical King Harold in Shrek to lectures on creativity and mental health, Cleese has used his voice in more ways than one. He's won Emmys, received a BAFTA fellowship, and was appointed a CBE. But perhaps his most lasting contribution is something quieter, his willingness to question himself, to evolve, and to speak truthfully about the complexity of creating laughter in a world that's always changing. So when John Cleese says he won't watch The Germans, it's not because he's ashamed. It's because he respects what comedy can do and what it can sometimes unintentionally become. It's because he remembers the cost of making people laugh and the vulnerability it requires. And it's because, even after all these years, he's still thinking, still questioning, and still trying to do better. If you found this look into the life of John Cleese as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more untold stories and deep dives into the lives of the world's most interesting entertainers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.